In this box is a battery that I bought from Temu that's supposed to be an Ego compatible 56 volt 12 amp hour battery. But the price was so low that I can't believe that that's actually what's going to be in there. But in this video, I'm going to open it up, I'm going to check it out. First thing I'm going to do is look at the size and weight and kind of see how that compares against my other Ego batteries. The next thing I'm going to do is plug it into a Nexus power generator and see what the app says that the battery is. And then the last thing I'm going to do is throw it in my lawnmower and mow my lawn with it, see how it works. So without any further ado, let's open this thing up. Hey everybody, it's Chris from Family Geekery, and in this video we're going to be checking out this battery here. This is the Ego compatible 56 volt 12 amp hour battery that I bought on Temu, and we're going to be testing it out. But it obviously looks just like a Ego battery. They got the same shape and the same color scheme and everything. So there's a couple different possible outcomes of this video. One is that it works, but it's just not 12 amp hours. One is it doesn't work at all, and the last one is that it's actually what it says it is. So as long as it's not the it doesn't work at all possibility, I'll be mostly happy with it. But let's take a look at what it looks like first. It's obviously the black plastic here, with this side says lithium ion 12 amp hours, and this side says Power Tools batteries 12 amp hours. The plastic on it feels sturdy, but it feels a little bit different. Let's go ahead and bring in another battery here real quick. And here is an actual Ego battery. We can see that there's, quite a bit of difference as far as like design. This one has kind of a rubbery texture to it, whereas this just has straight up hard plastic. This one has a lot more details on it, as opposed to this one just being kind of generic. But those two things I just mentioned have absolutely nothing to do with if the battery works or not. It's what's inside here, the cells that are inside that are going to make or break this battery. Now this one on the left is a 5 amp hour battery, and I would say size-wise they are about the same. I don't know how much of this one is, with the extra rubber coating and stuff like that, if it's making up some of the size difference between the two. As far as weight, I would say they're about the same. I don't have a little scale here with me, but they're pretty close in weight, which is unfortunately not a good sign, because the majority of that weight is going to be those cells that are inside there. And if it's about the same weight and about the same size, you got to imagine that they're about the same, capacity, wherein this one is clearly labeled as a 5 amp hour. And I know that my 5 amp hour batteries are much bigger than the 2.5 amp hour batteries that you get for like a string trimmer or something. So that's not boding well for what's in this generic one. Now, besides just the casing itself, it does have this light on the end here, and I'm not sure if it functions exactly the same, but when you push it, it does turn on. I'm not sure if it's going to have several segments in there that are going to, show what the capacity is as it's charging up or discharging. But again, that's just a nicety. I'd rather it work well than have the little features of the light up ring and stuff. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and plug it into my 3000 watt Nexus power generator thingy that I've got out in the garage. And I've got an app on my phone that talks to it, and it tells you what batteries you got plugged in and what charge they are, and how much they've got left to charge. So I'm really curious to see what it shows when I plug this thing in, if it actually reads it as a 12 amp hour battery, or what it reads it as. So let me go ahead and plug that in, and we'll take a look at the app. Alright, so I'm back, and I've done a lot of testing, and I've got a lot of results. Let's go ahead and go over those. I'm going to start with the bad news first, and that is I went out to the garage, plugged this into my Nexus, which is a 4-slot charger slash generator, backup generator. It can use the batteries to produce electricity if you have a power outage, but basically I use it to charge up 4 batteries at a time and keep them charged up. So I plugged this into one of the slots, and I've got an app that talks to it, and the app just said, hey, there's no battery there. And then on the front of the unit itself, there is a little battery meter that shows the 4 batteries and kind of gives you a generic picture of how much charge they have on them. and it showed that there was no battery plugged in there either. So that was a little troubling, I guess you could say. And I did check that the Nexus has the latest firmware update on it. I didn't know if maybe the the larger size batteries didn't exist when that thing was first made, and it doesn't believe the existence of a 12 amp hour battery. So I checked that, but as far as the Nexus goes, it does have the newest firmware. And it's not like I can call up Ego and say, hey, how come your battery charger thingy doesn't see my generic battery? So I'm just going to go ahead and chalk that up as that's not going to work in there. And that's doubly bad in the sense that it won't charge it because it doesn't think there's a battery there. And on the flip side of that, I can't use that in that generator. If I had a power outage, I couldn't use this battery in there because it doesn't think there's a battery in there. So that's the bad news. Now, the next thing I did is I plugged this into just one of the Ego speed chargers, one of the fast chargers, just a single battery charger, and it recognized it, and it started charging right away. Now, it's just a dumb charger. It knows, hey, there's a battery there, let's charge it, but it does have the little indicator lights to show what percentage, 25, 50, 75% in full. So it charged up about how I'd expect it to. Now, I didn't time it, and I didn't know how much was left in here, what the capacity was, but it just charged it up, and I let it go for an hour or two, and it was fully charged when it was done. So with that being said, the next thing I could do to it is throw it into a tool and start using it. So I threw it into my mower, which I admit is not the smartest thing to do. Take something that you don't know if it works or not and put it in your really nice tool, but I went ahead and took a gamble on it, and I've got just a 20-inch push mower. It's not self-propelled. It's one I've had for like 5 years. I got it on Craigslist for $100 back then, and the thing's been running great ever since. So I threw it in there, and I know when I'm mowing my lawn how much a 5 amp hour battery does for me. I can get my whole yard, the whole front yard mowed on one 5 amp hour battery, and my lot is not super huge and it's relatively flat, but I know that that's what I can do. If I use a 4 amp hour battery, then I've got an older battery that's a 4 amp hour, so it's less capacity and it's a little bit older, and I can get most of the yard done on the 4 amp hour battery before I have to throw in an extra battery. But this 5 amp hour, I can usually do the whole front yard without any problem. And today I threw this battery in there, and the grass was a little high, so it was a little bit more of a load on the mowers, which usually means it's going to chew up some more battery. And I'm happy to announce that I got the whole thing done on this one battery. Now, it was surprising. I wasn't sure it was going to do that, but I got the whole yard done on this. And then again, I don't have any way of, since the Ego Nexus, which actually tells you, what percentage of charge you have on your battery, doesn't recognize it, the only thing I can do is plug it back into the quick charger. And when I did, it had a 25% indicator charge on there, but after about a minute of being plugged in, it showed 50%. So I'm going to say it's somewhere in that 25 to 50% was left in here after mowing. So if I had to, take a wild guess, I would really think that this battery here is pretty close to a 5 amp hour battery. Now, how can they label it 12 amp hours? I've got no clue. I mean, it's even labeled back here on one of these little stickers. Is it this one? Yep. Let me turn that over. So it's clearly labeled right here. 50.4 volts or 56 volts max. 12 amp hours. And if you do the math, that is 604.8 watt hours. So, one thing that I was thinking, sometimes you can get into some wacky math where if something's listed in milliamp hours and it's a 3 volt battery versus a 5 volt battery, then that's a big difference. But when it's clearly marked as 50 volts, 12 amp hours, and 604 watt hours, I mean, the math checks out. That's what they're advertising it to be. That's what it should be. Now, the only way to really test that or to check that for sure is to pop this thing open and actually look at the cells, count them up, and see how many are in there. And if this thing ever does die on me, if it stops working for whatever reason, then I'll do that. I'll make a video. I'll go ahead and open this thing up and see exactly what's inside there. So if you want to see that, go ahead and subscribe. I hope I never make that video, though, because that means that this thing's going to still work. So I'm going to use this in my mower every time I mow this whole summer and see if it lasts me the whole summer. If it does, like I said, I'll be happy. It's not 12 amp hours. I don't believe it is. I never did believe it was, even when I pressed buy on the Temu website. I didn't believe it was 12 amp hours. But if it was, I think the 12 amp hour battery sells on the Ego site for like $600. And this was, you know, about 1/10 of that. So of those three possibilities that I said at the beginning, it's either going to not work at all, or it's going to work somewhat, but it's not going to be 12 amp hours, or it is going to be exactly what it was advertised. I'm going to say it's probably that middle one. It works, but it's not exactly what it's advertised to be. And for the, I think it was $70 I spent on it, I'm going to go ahead and be happy if it lasts the whole summer. It's just going to keep some wear and tear off my other batteries and just give me a backup, I guess. Now, the last thing I'm going to mention, if you do go out to buy one of these on Temu, is be careful when you click on the item to buy it, because sometimes when you see the list of all the items, if you, let's say you do a search for Ego battery and you see a list of 100 different ones, and it says on there 12 amp hour battery, $70, and you're not going to see that. I don't think they're that cheap anymore. I got just a weird deal on it. But if you see that 12 amp hour $70, for example, and you click on it, now there may be like a 5 amp hour, a 6 amp hour, a 7 amp hour, and a 12 amp hour version, and as you click those different versions, the price changes. And I've seen it where you click on it and that $70 that you saw was for the 5 amp hour, and by the time you click on the 12 amp hour one, you know, it's $150 or something. So be careful when you're shopping on that site. You know, make sure that you're actually clicking on the right one and seeing the price before you actually go ahead and buy it, just to make sure that you're not spending too much on it. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. I guess if I had to summarize it, I'd say for the money that I spent and for what it's doing right now, I am happy with it. If you look on the just a retail price for this battery here, it's about $300. Now, hopefully nobody goes and buys one of these for $300 when you can get this with a tool for, you know, $400 or something, and a leaf blower or some kind of other tool, you know, get it that way. But if you did have to get a 5 amp hour battery and it cost $300, and this one on Temu was under $100, even if it's not what it's advertised to be, that's still a considerable savings. So let me know what you think about this video down in the comments below. Have you ever bought one of these? What was your experience with it? Let me know what you think about this video. Hopefully you got something out of it, and if you did, I always appreciate that thumbs up. That helps out the channel. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. I thank you as always for watching, and until next time, peace out and geek out.